Hi, bonjour. The purpose of this recording is to help you remediate on the Unit 1 and 2 test and go over the content that was covered and assessed on that exam. So how this works is I'm going to review the key topics from these units, and there will be practice questions after each topic. You're going to write down the letter that corresponds to the correct answer for each question. Make sure you write it down in all caps. It does need to be capitalized for the password to work. And that password is going to unlock the retake version of the test. And I'll talk more about where to find that at the end. So let's review l'alphabet, because the listening comprehension questions are going to require you to know your letters and be able to understand them. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Of course, the ones you want to pay the most attention to, because the sounds can be difficult, would be E, and U. Make sure you're distinguishing those because they are somewhat different from their English pronunciation. And then also G and J, which can be easily confused, and R, which is just hard to hear. Now for some vocabulary. So, qu'est-ce que cela veut dire? Of course, you should know what this question means. Looking at your vocabulary, what does this mean? So these are some essential words for you to know from your vocabulary. So, of course, bonjour and salut and bonsoir, which are all ways of greeting people. Salut, au revoir, and à bientôt, all ways of saying goodbye. Comment vous appelez-vous? And comment t'appelles-tu? The ways of asking, what is your name? Comment vous appelez-vous is our formal version. Comment t'appelles-tu is the informal version. So, comment vous appelez-vous? Comment t'appelles-tu? The answer to that question will be, je m'appelle, and then you can say your name. Comment ça va? How are you? You can answer bien, mal, comme ci, comme ça. And then our subject pronouns, je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. These aren't really on your vocab list, they're just words that you need to know what they mean. So, comment dit-on? So how do you say these things in French? These are some words that hopefully you can remember. To study, that's going to be étudier. To learn, apprendre. To get good grades, avoir bonne note. To teach, enseigner. Girl, la fille, and I am going to be using definite articles with all of these, so you can see those and help with the gender. The boy, le garçon. The man, l'homme, and it's L' because it starts with an H. Woman, la femme. Student, l'élève. This word can be masculine or feminine depending on what you're referring to. The teacher, le professeur. A girl teacher would be la professeure. Sometimes you might hear la professeuse. Blonde, blond, or blonde if it's feminine. Brunette, brun or brune. Smart, intelligent. Nice, sympa, happy, heureux. And then, of course, your numbers 1 through 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are all from your Unit 1 and 2 vocab list. This is all Unit 1, this is all Unit 2. Make sure you are familiar with those going into your test. So choose the best answer to this question. Comment vous appelez-vous? Is it A, B, C, or D? Make sure you write it down in all caps. Subject pronouns. There are more subject pronouns in French than we have in English because they have a formal pronoun and a plural you pronoun, and then they have two words that mean they. So they have a couple extra, but for the most part, they're the same. So here are the singular pronouns, and here are the plural pronouns. Put a little asterisk with vous because it can be sometimes singular in formal situations. So just remember that too. So je, of course, for I. Tu is singular. Singular. Very important to remember that it is singular and informal. So it's not just informal, it's also singular. Anytime you're talking to more than one person, you're saying you all, you both. There's more than one person that you are talking to them, you're going to use vous. Il and elle, these are used for talking about people. That can get kind of confusing, the difference between you and he, she, and they. But these are third-person pronouns. He, she, and they are third-person pronouns, which means you're talking about them. You're referring to someone who's not a part of the conversation necessarily. So they're a third person that you're talking about. Versus tu and vous, which are used when you are talking to someone. And then je and nous is when you are included. So you're part of the group. Okay, so first person, talking about yourself. The difference between il, plural, and elle, plural, really is just if there is at least one male member of the group, then you're going to use il. You can only use elle if you are talking about a group of 100% female people. So there can be no males involved if you're using elle. The pronoun tu is used if the noun is singular or the subject is singular and informal. In every other situation, you're going to use vous. So when in doubt, use vous. The only time you're going to use tu is if you're talking to one person in an informal situation. Here's some examples of times where you're going to use these different pronouns. So il is going to be used if you're referring to someone like Jean, a person, a man, a boy. You would also use it to replace words like le stylo, the pen, because it's masculine. To say it, you're going to use il in that sentence. Also to talk about mon père, to replace that, your dad, in a sentence. Elle is going to be used as she, talking about girls or women. It's also used to replace feminine nouns if they're serving as the subject. So if I wanted to say the class is interesting, it is fun, that it is going to be replaced by elle because class is feminine. Nous is used anytime you're part of the group. Vous is used anytime you're talking to more than one person or it's formal. And then il is going to be used anytime there's at least one guy in the group. So Pierre et Anne, that's Pierre and Anne. Since there's two people and one of them's a boy, I'm going to use il. But for elle, I would use it to replace only girls. So Marie et Suzanne, two girls. Les filles, group of girls. That's what I'm going to use elle. So choose the subject pronoun that you would use in the following situation. Talking to your new teacher. Is it tu or vous? Go ahead and choose your response. Fantastique. Nouns. All French nouns have gender. Period. No exceptions. Just like in English, sometimes nouns are plural. They're made plural following specific rules. When you're looking at a sentence, you can use the articles to help you determine if a noun is masculine or feminine or if it's plural. There are two types of articles. We have two types of articles in English, so this is the same. They just have gender involved. In English, we have our definite article, which is the. It's used to talk about specific things. In French, the definite articles are le and la for the singular nouns, and plural nouns are always going to be preceded by les. You'll also see L apostrophe used sometimes for the singular, and that's only used if the noun starts with a vowel. So you're going to use L apostrophe anytime it's a singular noun that starts with a vowel. If it's plural, always they. Always. If you're using definite articles. Indefinite articles, this is a or some. We do this in English where we have a special word that we use if a word starts with a vowel. Yeah, see, we do it too. It's not just French that's crazy. So indefinite articles. Our singular indefinite articles are very similar to the number 1 because you are talking about one thing, but not a specific thing, it's just one. So un and une. Un, the number 1, une, a feminine version of that. And then to say some, you're going to use des. You're always going to use des as your plural indefinite article. So definite articles, meaning the, indefinite articles, a or some. Now you may be thinking to yourself, how am I supposed to know if a noun is masculine or feminine if I'm just like thinking about the word? If I don't see an article, how am I supposed to know these things? Generally speaking, a feminine noun is going to end with the letter E, most of the time. With very few exceptions, a plural noun is going to end with the letter S or X. So if you see an S or an X on the end of a word, you know it's plural. If you see an X, it's masculine. If you see an S and you're trying to figure out if it's feminine or masculine, you want to look at the letter right before the S, and that's how you might decide. So if you saw a word like this, class, well, this S is telling me that this word is probably plural. Right before the S, I see an E. So I'm just going to make a guess that this noun might be feminine. So we'll say class is feminine plural, just making a guess about it. We would use the article les with it, and we're going to use feminine plural adjectives. So we might say la classe intéressante. E-S to make it feminine plural. Speaking of adjective agreement, all adjectives must agree with the nouns they describe in gender and in number. Number 1 rule of adjectives, gender, number, agreement. To tell a noun's gender, you look at the article, you look at the ending, find some clues. To find out if it's singular or plural, look at the article, look at the ending again. Learn the gender as you're learning new words. That will help you immensely. If a noun is masculine, and you have your adjective you want to use with it, and you're thinking, okay, I have a masculine noun like notebook, and I want to say that my notebook is red. I don't need to make any changes to that word because notebook is already masculine. I'm talking about one, it's singular. The adjectives come in a masculine singular form. But let's say instead of talking about my notebook, I want to talk about my table. Since table is feminine, if I want to say the table is brown, I'm going to have to make changes to that adjective to make it agree with the noun that I'm wanting to use. This has to happen no matter what noun you're using. If you're describing it, if you're modifying it, that's a fancy grammar way of saying it, with an adjective or an article or anything like that, you have to change the gender agreement. So for adjectives, there's a few rules that are followed. Generally, you're just going to add an E to the end of the adjective, but there's a few exceptions to this. If it ends in a vowel but isn't an E with an accent mark, you're not going to do anything to it. So some adjectives that are like this are the color I just gave, rouge, red, that doesn't change to become feminine. Sympa does not change to become feminine because it ends in a vowel. If it ends in an F, you're going to change the F to a V before you add the E. And if it ends in an X, you're going to change the X to an S before you add the E. That's just to make it look pretty. It's not really for too much of a purpose. It kind of changes the pronunciation slightly, but not dramatically. So this is to make it feminine. You only have to make the adjective feminine if the noun is feminine. So don't go changing for gender if you don't need to. Don't put more work on yourself. Make it simple. If the noun is masculine, leave the adjective masculine. If the noun is feminine, make it feminine. Then you have to think about plurality. if the noun is plural, and you know because it ends in one of these things that you're seeing here, then you need to make your adjective plural. So if you're wanting to talk about multiple dogs, you're wanting to talk about multiple books, you're wanting to talk about a group of people, your adjective also needs to be plural. So if the noun or the adjective that you're trying to make plural ends in AL, you're going to change the AL to AUX to make it plural. If the noun or adjective you're trying to pluralize ends in EAU, you're going to add an X to the end of the word to make it plural. If the noun or adjective already ends in SX or Z, you don't need to make any changes to make it plural. A great example of this with an adjective is the word heureux, which means happy. To make that masculine plural, you don't make any changes. It's still heureux. So that would be les garçons heureux, the happy boys, le garçon heureux, the happy boy, singular. There's no difference in those words. They're the exact same word. However, making it feminine does change this word. That's why we change for gender first. Every other noun or adjective that you want to make plural, just tack an S on to the end. Super simple. Very few words fall into these categories, so it's not like you're going to have to be doing this a lot. You'll mostly be doing this. Adjectives generally come after the nouns they describe. When you're making it a phrase, maybe you're making it a sentence, generally that adjective is going to be after the noun. So I might say something, instead of in English we say the red book, in French it would be written as the book red, as in the color. So that's just the word order. The only exceptions for this are words describing beauty, such as good looking or pretty, beau and joli. If you're talking about age, like nouveau comes before, meaning new, vieux goes before, meaning old. Any number is going to go before, and numbers don't change to agree. That's important to note. You're not going to make a number plural. It's going to stay in its same form. They're kind of hybrid adjectives, if you will. And then goodness, you're talking about something's good or bad or nice. Those words will come before. And then size, if it's something small, big, fat, those go before as well. So these are just some general categories, but when in doubt, put it second. All right, so choose the plural for this word. This is the word for water in French. You may be thinking, how can you make the word water plural? Well, think about it. We say this in English sometimes. We say like the waters are whatever. So it can be done. Which of these is the plural for water? And then password question 4. Choose the best translation for this phrase in parentheses. So which of these means 20 students? And then we're going to wrap up with culture. So some things about France, which was our culture for units 1 through 3. France is ruled by a president who elects a prime minister, so they have both. There are several regions, régions, in France, and the departments that they are divided into. Many of these are overseas. There's a département de Outre-mer, which is the overseas department, made up of several countries. We're going to learn about one later this year called La Réunion, which is near Madagascar in Africa. France has territories in almost every continent, not North America, but they do have South America, Africa, and Asia. And of course Europe, because that's where they are. In France, they speak French. Whoa. And this is a language that is regulated by l'Académie Française. There is a standard French. I don't know if you know this. English does not have standard English. It's not a thing. Standard French is a thing. There is a dictionary out there that tells you what is French and what is not. And that's that. French schools are divided into 3 required levels: l'école primaire, le collège, and la lycée. Those are the 3 levels that are compulsory, meaning students have to attend them. to some degree. Le collège and la lycée both end in national tests, which earn them diplomas. Le brevet is taken at the end of collège, and le baccalauréat is taken at the end of lycée. These are both very difficult tests. Le baccalauréat is extremely difficult. It's all construction response. It's taken over the course of 5 or 6 days, and each day they're testing for 2 to 4 hours. Writing essays, very strenuous. The French grades, as in the level of school you're in, count down to their last year. So the last year of lycée, the year you graduate, is la terminale. You can see the word terminal, the end there. And then la sixième is the first year that starts. So in la sixième, which is the first year of collège, after that is le cinquième, le quatrième, le troisième. The first year of lycée is la seconde. The next year is la première. And then you have la terminale. So it counts backwards. France is famous for its food, bread, cheese, wine. Those are the things that France is known for. They've got literally thousands of types of cheese, which is insane. French meals are a little bit different from your typical American meal habits. Breakfast is small if it's even eaten. Lunch is going to be larger, multiple courses. You're going to have a salad, you're going to have some other kind of appetizer, you're going to have an entree, you're going to have dessert potentially. Dinner would be similar as well, just a longer meal, emphasizing the social aspect and hanging out with your friends or family. Most schools allow students several, or at least 1 or 2 hours for lunch. Some students leave the school and go home to eat their lunch. Many students stay. The lunches that they serve at school are super fancy compared to an American lunch at school. And that is just because of the emphasis they place on food in France and those larger meals. So again, breakfast would be small, maybe bread, coffee, tea kind of thing. Lunch having multiple courses, dinner having multiple courses. So which level of school would you find the grade la seconde? All right, well that is it. If you still have questions, you can set up a learner conference by going to tinyurl.com/crackerconference. You can come to my office hours at these times by visiting this website, tinyurl.com/crackerclassroom. You can also see my contact information there if you need to email me. You should have 5 capitalized letters. If you missed a letter of the password, go back and watch the recording again. Go to the retake information module near your course materials in your French course, and you will see the retake version of this test. You're going to use the password to access that retake version. And again, if you need help finding it or anything, feel free to email or come to a session. Hope this is helpful to you and you have a better understanding of the material. À bientôt!